Okay, good morning everyone. My name's Alex Hall. I'm the Head of Customer Development here at PageGroup. So in short, I look after all of our client services, outsourcing, account management, advisory sort of services that work to our clients. So around about April time this year, we started to work out that GDPR had been sort of done and dusted and talked to death, and Brexit questions started to disappear, and IR35 came into the radar. And I think it's been a really interesting sort of couple of months for me personally. Had lots of conversations with mainly our medium to large size client partners around how we're going to deal with the short-term challenge of IR35. So today's event is not about the short-term challenges around risk, assess tools. There's plenty of other events that we've organised as an organisation to look at sort of how we deal with the immediate challenge piece, if you like. Today's a bit more focused around what opportunities as well as the challenges that this is presented to organisations. I think looking at the cultural impact, if you like, of this assess tool. Are you comfortable as an organisation with substitution or direction, for example? Organisations that maybe are more agile or nimble in their thoughts and management practices around how they bring workers into the organisation could potentially see some great opportunities moving forward from the changes. So I think it's been quite interesting recent short period talking to many customers. So we got talking to change associates, and I'll hand over to Grahame in a minute, around this challenge or opportunity, if you like, that many of our clients are going to be facing in the next short period. But once the new regulations come into place for private sector in April, what opportunities does that present for clients, large and small, in the private sector? What can we learn from the changes that happened in the public sector just under 2 years ago? So Charles Handy, I think, over 30 years ago, predicted that workers, employees or individuals would start to offer their services to organisations under more flexible vehicles such as limited companies. And 30 years on, here we are, a sort of shamrock organisation, if you like, has come to pass. Many organisations have benefited greatly from the use of contingent workers coming in and providing skills and experiences and knowledge in a timely fashion to businesses. Many organisations have therefore benefited, many individuals have benefited. They've built skills, they've had flexibility, they've been able to command good day rates. The rub potentially has been that some lower paid workers haven't necessarily seen that benefit. Often they've been employed doing what is a role on a sort of comparable permanent salary, but with lesser benefits, lesser job securities, etc. And certainly more latterly with austerity, the HMRC also has felt that there's a loophole here that needs to be challenged and closed. Particularly through some fairly tough times with austerity, a fair and just system around tax collection and working through the changes that began with IR35 and determination in April 17 through to the private sector is a long time coming, I think, from their perspective. So a few months back we started talking to change associates, and Grahame and his team suggested this could be a really good opportunity to organise through a market research exercise some findings, and then maybe create an opportunity for our clients to hear through a panel discussion some of those findings and work out where potentially there are opportunities as a business to move forward and deal with not just the short-term challenge but also the opportunities that presents. So we're hosting our session today from our Hearn office. We have 300 recruiters in our Hearn office. This is one of our biggest offices globally. We've got a fabulous panel with us today, and I'll come on to introductions very shortly. So I just wanted to hand over to Grahame, who's the CEO and founder of Change Associates, and take us to the next phase of the session.
Good morning, everyone. As Alex said, we set out a few months ago to put the research together, and it's thrown up a lot of, for us, really interesting issues. And again, as Alex alluded to, lots of stuff out there about the financial risk and the legal risk, but not a lot of commentary about the opportunity that this presents to kind of reset things. So we're going to focus a little bit on both of those things. Just a quick introduction. Change Associates, organisational change consultancy. We've been around nearly 10 years now. And interestingly, our delivery model is an associate model. So we have 10 people working centrally on an employed basis out of our office near Marble Arch, but we do deliver through an associate model. So we're very passionate about the opportunity that the freelancer independent model gives us. It gives us the opportunity to engage very closely with our deliverers, and I know there are one or two of our associates in the audience today, and I hope that they would back me up and say that it is a very engaged, very fruitful sort of model. So it certainly works for us at that level. So the changing world of work is moving at a pace never seen before. I think we'd all agree that. Technology has played a massive part, generational differences maybe to a slightly lesser extent. The realisation more recently that diversity is a force for good, and the current levels of transparency are continuing to move the workplace forward like we've never seen before. But the other long-burn change, of course, has been the move to the flexible workforce, predicted, as Alex said, by Charles Handy in the 1980s. One of the results is that there are more people in work than ever before, but there are fewer people paying tax, and people paying less tax than NI as a proportion of their income. Part-time contracts, zero-hours contracts, and professionals working differently outside traditional employment contracts have all contributed to lower HMRC receipts against a background of austerity and other demands on the public purse, very topical at the moment. It's hardly surprising that the HMRC seek to recover lost revenue sources. Their aim is to bring an additional £2.9 billion of tax revenue back into the coffers for the Chancellor from these changes. For their part, employers have benefited greatly from greater flexibility, not just in financial terms, but also from the ability to quickly access the capability and capacity for their operations. So what should we make of life post-2020? Post-April 2020? Change Associates and PageGroup join forces to try and understand how organisations can prepare now. And our researchers explored the plethora of materials already out there, and to that we added our own primary research, receiving data from questionnaires and interviews involving hundreds of contingent workers and leaders from the various organisations in both the public sector and the private sector. Quickly, as I said before, it quickly became evident from the desk research that the focus was on financial and legal risk. What we hope to do is explore the cultural issues and the opportunities as well as the challenges post IR35. But equally, another key message that comes from the research is don't be asleep at the wheel. Okay, so some of the analysis tops the list of greatest current threats to prospects, well ahead of technology changes, which does not seem to hold the same fear that it once did. 49% of men saw IR35 as the greatest threat, compared with 37% of women, and yet women tended to be more concerned about the political, economic and social factors outside their control, 27% versus 18%. As you would expect, IR35 was a particular concern for those in their 40s and 50s, and after all, Andy did say that we should consider a portfolio role after the portfolio roles after the age of 50. %40 were concerned that IR35 would take away the benefits of working as a contractor, freelancer, gig worker. 25% were worried but really didn't understand the impact. And 16% could be accused of having their head in the sand. They said employers will work things out as there's always a way around it. We believe that this is a dangerous stance to take. Complacency on behalf of the individual or the organisations they work for will have real consequences. IR35, which has been fairly passive for 19 years, is moving to an active phase, so there's no hiding place. Something that has been well publicised is the letters to 1,500 GSK workers. They received this letter from HMRC suggesting they were non-compliant within their current roles. And now both GSK and Barclays have informed all contractors that they must go on payroll. But HMRC have been losing some tribunals at the same time. But maybe corporates won't get the same leeway that individuals would get. So that's something to watch out for. So, is what HMRC are doing, is what IR35 is doing, is it fair? Well, we interestingly interviewed a provider of a specialist temporary talent provider. Needless to say, he doesn't wish to be named at this point. So he said, IR35 is long overdue. There has been a system of tax avoidance by contractors who know all the loopholes and know the risks. They had it good for years and should just accept with good grace that HMRC has finally caught up with them. So that is a provider, somebody who stands to benefit from the model. But what's important to say is that IR35 does not spell the end of having a coherent, well-conceived build, borrow, buy strategy for the workforce. Build by investing and developing and retaining talent. Borrow using contingent workers effectively and safely, and buy attracting the best in-house talent. So we think that the 2020 changes can act as a catalyst to reevaluate your workforce, your workplace, your organisation design and your talent strategy. It also provides you with the opportunity to plan for better diversity of thought, background and style, and gives you the opportunity to reflect in a strategic way where a contingent worker is best placed to deliver what you need. Once again, we say it's not the end of flexible working, it's the start of a more coherent approach. So, perhaps surprisingly, contingent workers may work out to be very loyal to organisations. In fact, the majority of contingent workers are not averse to taking on an on-payroll job. That rather surprised me. So this could bode well for the blended workforce. It's all about providing what they're looking for. If the benefits are good, or if the benefits are good, they may be up for it. Only 12% said there was very little that was good about being an employee. So the sort of things that they don't like, which we, I guess, would expect, is the office politics, the reduced earning potential, lack of work-life balance, feeling restricted, and not being the master of their own destiny. So if some of this could be addressed, they could be up for on-payroll work. So that's a quick run through some of the data that we captured, and you will get access to the research report. So where does this leave the organisation? Okay, what to do? So Change Associates and PageGroup suggest a three-pronged approach. 1, get help. 2, get talking. And 3, get organised. So firstly, get help. Create yourself a baseline, carry out an audit of where you are, and that becomes your reference point on what you have. Look very carefully at your current position and analyse your current position. Very few organisations, interestingly, after over 25 years in consulting, very few organisations actually know their own headcount. Might surprise some people. Get external help if you need it. Learn from what others have done as well, and that's an ongoing process. Be clear about where you want your destination to be. Don't let it just evolve. Be very clear about what you want in terms of your build, borrow, buy workforce. Have a clear approach and a clear strategy. And demonstrate that you've thoroughly reviewed your approach and used the HMRC CEST tool, C-E-S-T. Those of you who haven't come across that, it's a very useful tool. It's not bulletproof, but at least it was provided by the HMRC and can be used on an individual basis. It's in your interests to show that you've carried out a review and that you're using the HMRC tool. So if anyone comes back to you, then if they see that you've actually actively worked through a strategy, then it works in your favour. Second, get talking. We would suggest that you run sessions with your contingent workforce, in group sessions and one-to-one meetings. Again, run them through the HMRC CEST tool, if that's relevant. Raise the profile with leaders and managers. This is not for local managers and recruitment and HR. This is for everyone across the organisation. There is real risk here and a real opportunity here. So raise the profile. It's like GDPR. It took a while to understand that everyone in the organisation needed to play their part. And remember, maverick recruiters in the organisation are a real risk to you. Don't tolerate it. Don't let them go rogue. They've got to be brought inside the strategy and the approach. And talk with your partners and suppliers, whether that be Page or whoever you're working with. Make sure that you're aligned on the approach. And bear in mind that some of these guys stand to benefit from not being compliant, at least in the short term. So get organised. Third point, get organised. You'll need the support of HR, finance and procurement to drive an approach. Get the necessary data you need, sort the processes, get the resources in place, mitigate the financial and legal risk of IR35 in a thought-through way. Choose your suppliers very carefully, ensure they understand themselves the risks and the opportunities, and that they're advising you well. Make workforce planning fashionable again. Expand the scope of your talent strategy. Ensure your systems are up to it. If your HRIS systems aren't up to it, use something like OrgView, some of you may have come across that, to map your workforce or use them together. So that's a fairly rapid run through of a summary of what we came up with in the research. You will all be emailed a PDF copy of the research. Anyone that wants hard copies, just let us know. But use that as a little bit of a reference point for your way forward. And I appreciate we're talking to a bit of a mixed group here. Some of you are practitioners, some of you from organisations. But I guess the approach is aimed largely at organisations. So that's just, as I say, a quick overview of the research. What I'd like to do now is introduce our keynote speaker, Matthew Taylor. Matthew is the Chief Executive of the RSA, a position he's held since 2006. Matthew also holds the part-time role as the Government's Director of Labour Market Enforcement and is also a member of its Industrial Strategy Council. In July 2017, as many of you will know, Matthew published the high-profile report, Good Work, an independent review into modern employment commissioned by the UK Prime Minister. Matthew's appeared on the Today programme, Daily Politics and Newsnight, and has also written and presented a number of Radio 4 documentaries and is a panellist on The Moral Maze. Matthew.
Okay, so hello everybody. There's lots of chairs at the front, by the way, for getting tired at the back. I want want to start with some principles. So in the Good Work Review, I tried to adopt a kind of principles-based approach to the question of the regulation of the labour market. And I'd kind of share with you 3 of those principles as a context for our conversations, for your conversations. The first is the principle of good work, which is simply that as a public policy goal, as a social objective, for us as a country, we should care as much about the quality of work as we do about the quantity of work. And it feels to me that partly as a consequence of our report, but as a result of other factors, that is being taken seriously as a principle. So the principle of good work is one which wasn't really around very much a few years ago as a kind of national goal. It is now much more strongly. Now, that doesn't mean for a moment that principle is being adhered to or applied at university. We've got a long way to go, but the principle is at least one which people recognise. The second principle in my report was that flexibility is a good thing, which is still a controversial view in some quarters, and certainly not a view I think shared by the Labour Party, who have a very good chance of being the largest party at the election or being leaders of the minority administration. So, things may be changing quite radically in this whole space. But I think that flexibility is a good thing, but that it needs to be, as I put it in my report, two-way flexibility. It has to be flexibility that benefits the individual as well as the organisation. And one thing I would say, which we kind of alluded to slightly, but we just need to reinforce all the time, is that when we talk about the contingent workforce, the experience of kind of middle-class educated professionals who are freelancers and the experience of low-paid, low-skilled, insecure, precarious workers are completely different. They may legally have a similar kind of status, but their actual experiences, their experiences of flexibility, their experiences where the system works for them are radically different. And in all our conversations, we need to recognise that. And really, whenever we conflate the experience of those two groups, what the Resolution Foundation once called the privileged and the precariat, and then we're missing something in terms of the reality of people's lives. But flexibility needs to be two-way, and it needs particularly, that needs to be emphasised for those at the bottom end of the labour market. And then the third principle is that we need a level playing field in relation to the regulatory and tax framework. So that the reason that organisations succeed is because of their entrepreneurialism, because of their investment, because of their commitment, not because of their capacity to arbitrage a system full of loopholes. So those are the kind of principles that underlie, some of the principles which underlie my work, and it's why I think IR35 is necessary, or the new emphasis on IR35, the shift of responsibility from the individual to the organisation, which fundamentally addresses the fact that non-compliance rates when they burden lay with the individual are kind of astronomically high, and it's simply impossible for HMRC to do anything about it because it costs more money to pursue people than you would to recoup people. So the change is necessary. For me, it has the benefit also of pushing forward the possibility of a much stronger alignment between the tax system and the employment status regulations, and that's something I've advocated. The government has accepted in principle, and depending on the outcome of the general election, everything depends on the outcome of the general election. The government is committed to primary legislation, a new Employment Act, which I hope will contain clarification of employment status, including a stronger alignment between employment status and tax status. So that's all on the kind of upside. However, I am concerned about the way in which we're going about, the government is going about the implementation of this. Now this is kind of, this is standard. I've been in the world of policy making for a very, very long time. And it is absolutely inevitable that when a major change is introduced, 6 months before it's introduced, everyone says that nobody's ready and that the roof's going to fall in and it's all completely disastrous. And I'm hearing that now, and I take it with a pinch of salt, but I am concerned that there isn't sufficient awareness across the whole of the labour market of IR35 and its implications. I have visited employment agencies and kind of listened in to them going through inspections, and I wasn't particularly reassured about what I heard. So, for example, in one employment agency, the person we were interviewing, I asked them about IR35, and they said, well, of course, it's got big implications for freelancers. And I had to say, no, it hasn't got big implications for freelancers. It does, but it also has very big implications for people you're providing your clients. And if your clients need to understand that it's not just about the implications for freelancers. In fact, that's really the shift, in the sense that the implications are less for the freelancers and much more for the hire of labour. So I worry that there's insufficient awareness. I'm told by one of the recruitment agencies, trade associations, that still on their kind of helpline, IR35 is still not the most mentioned issue, which I find pretty remarkable, actually. So, and I don't really blame HMRC for this, but we've got this thing called Brexit going on, we've got this thing called the general election going on, and that has distracted people, and it means government is really incapable of communicating, has been incapable of communicating for some time. So that has really got in the way of communication, and we don't have that much time when we come out of the election. I'm more concerned with my labour market enforcement hat on. What I see as already growing and open attempts to circumvent the regulations. And so this is simply a reality of our system, that when a regulation is introduced that is well-meaning, that is attempting to achieve important public policy goals, that there is then a legion of accountants and lawyers and crooks, basically. I'm not saying accountants and lawyers are crooks, but accountants and lawyers, comma, and crooks, who will do their very best to find ways of circumventing and getting around this. And I am hearing worrying stories of organisations being contacted and told, IR35 is coming along, here's a clever dodge, which is a way for you to avoid having to bring people onto payroll and for you to avoid having to pay tax or national insurance, particularly national insurance. So I think we need to do a lot more work, so I'm very supportive of events like today's that get that message across. The final thing I want to say, however, relates to something that was in Grahame's presentation, I think is very important, which is the attitude with which we approach IR35 and the implications it might have for us. So I will be publishing in a few weeks' time a collection of essays around the issue of productivity and good work. So as you all know, we have a kind of productivity puzzle or productivity crisis in this country, which is that productivity is flatlined now since before the credit crunch. So we have an employment miracle, but a productivity disaster. And so what we've been exploring in that work with fresh research and fresh perspectives is a relationship between work quality and productivity. And the evidence is pretty clear that people in good work are more productive, and organisations that create good work are more productive. Now, an important part of what makes good work is pay and flexibility. But we also know the other components of what leads to good work, what leads to people having a sense of work satisfaction and a sense of motivation and a sense of possibility of work. And that includes things like a sense of purpose, feeling that your work is purposive and feeling that the organisation you work for has a clear sense of purpose. It's around the sense of teamwork. Do you feel that you're part of a team of people you enjoy working with effective management, but also does your organisation feel like an organisation that is fair, in which people are treated fairly? And then thirdly, autonomy. Do you as a worker, as an employee, feel you have some autonomy, you have some agency? Now, the evidence suggests, for example, that the strongest correlate with people going off sick at work is a lack of autonomy, the anxiety and the stress and the depression which results from people feeling they have absolutely no agency in their work. And whilst technology offers really big opportunities for improving work, it also opportunities for much heavier surveillance of people at work. And that's why when you talk to workers, they are largely pessimistic about the impact of technology on their work. So I just want to end with kind of reinforcing Grahame's point about organisational design. It seems to me that to an extent, contingent working has allowed organisations to externalise some of the challenges of organisational design. And one of the challenges, therefore, created by IR35 is going to be that if contingent working is less easily available as a way of externalising the challenges of running organisations effectively, it is going to lead us to have to think very hard about how our organisations work. And it's a different lecture, it's a different conversation. I've got 30 seconds left, so I'm not going to talk about it now. But I don't think we do organisational design very well. I think there are some extremely interesting and radical approaches to the way in which organisations work. Much flatter, much more autonomous, much more collaborative. But they are the exceptions. You know, the majority of organisations are still kind of bureaucratic, pyramidic kind of forms, which don't provide some of the elements of good work that I've described. My friend, futurist, management consultants and various other things, Charlie Lepita, wrote a report a few years ago. He looked at the most innovative organisations in the world. And having looked at those, there was a football club, there was a filmmaker, there was a science lab, there was an amazing Indian social enterprise. He looked at all of them and he said, what do these amazing organisations have in common? And he came up with a phrase to describe them. He said, these organisations are creative communities with a cause. So creative communities with a cause. So organisations with a really clear sense of purpose and cause and strategic leadership, and leaders who focused on the vision rather than micromanaging or self-aggrandizement. Community, a sense of a people, a team of people working effectively together in pursuit of a change in the world, not defensively, but in pursuit of an amazing change in the world. And creative in the sense that these were organisations that encouraged people, gave people a sense of agency, encouraged people to be imaginative, to take risks, occasionally to make mistakes, but to learn from them. So I kind of leave you with that question. As we think about the role, the way that IR35 is going to lead us to have to ask some quite profound questions about our organisations going forward. How close is your organisation to being a creative community with a cause, and what do you need to do to make it more like that?
Thanks, Matthew. So before we move on to the panel discussion, would anyone like to ask Matthew any specific questions regarding his keynotes? We've got a few minutes just for specific questions regarding content Matthew's just walked through. So offer up to the floor. Who's going to go first?
Everyone's stunned. For wisdom.
You mentioned the concerns about the private sector and harassing, things like that with issue solved. Which kind of surprises me because they face so much complexity right now. This is obviously another layer. Is that not a serious concern in relation to it?
Yeah, no, it is a serious concern. I thought it was a really big thing, and it's really, that's why I was delighted to come along. I'm delighted to do anything that was about raising people's awareness. And indeed, within government, I'm pushing for a wider understanding across government of its implications, not just in terms of employment practices, but our wider implications. And I'm, asking questions about whether or not we are doing sufficient, government is doing sufficient to raise people's awareness of the risks and opportunities associated with it. All I'm saying to you is there has never been a major policy shift where people haven't said 6 months before it's implemented it's going to be a disaster, and sometimes they've been right, but mostly they've been wrong. So what I'm saying is I don't think we're yet in kind of panic stage, and I certainly don't think that those people who might want to use the lack of preparation as an excuse for saying we should put this back another year are right. But I absolutely do think that we need to be working harder to raise awareness, and particularly to get people into mindset where they see this, and this is why today's been so valuable, as an opportunity, not simply as another regulatory burden.
Thank you, Matthew. What do you see as holding...
There's a mic.
Thanks so much. I love this idea of creative communities and cause.
Wow. It's a very big question. And so I can answer it in many, many ways, and I'm available at very reasonable rates, by the way. I'll give you one specific answer, and that is that I don't think we conceptualise organisations in the way that we need to. We don't have a conceptual frame to see organisations and to understand the challenges of bringing together the attributes of what makes organisations work. So in my view, and this really is a longer thesis that I can't fully develop. In my view, in organisations, there are basically three things that people are responding to. So they're responding to authority. That's rules, strategy, and bureaucracy and all of that. They're responding to values and norms, and the sense of what is right and the sense of what's in their team. And they're also responding to their own individual incentives, what it is they want to achieve, which doesn't necessarily mean a narrow sense of just maximising their own self-interest, but wanting to grow, wanting to develop, right? So in every organisation, what you're trying to do is you're trying to maximise the motivation that can come from authority, the motivation that can come from kind of being part of a tribe of shared values, and the motivation that can come from your own individual aspiration. But what makes it difficult is those things push against each other. So you can't simply turn them one up. If you increase authority, you're actually quite likely to make teams start to become more subversive because they start to be irritated by the authority. Or else you create systems of incentives which lead people to pursue rules rather than the ultimate goal of the organisation. There's a lot of that in the public sector, for example. So I suppose my point would be that if you're going to do organisational design, you have to start with a kind of conceptual framework of understanding what it is that makes organisations thrive, and recognising that leadership is, in the end, it is a process of continuously trying to hold together these motivations, all of you. You are all motivated by rules, you're all motivated by values, and you're all motivated by self-interest. And organisations have to bring those motivations, which are fundamental to us, deeply evolved in us, and hold them together whilst recognising that they are kind of continuously in tension. So, for example, so you've got me going now. But for example, when things go wrong in an organisation, in the executive team, somebody will say, what we need to do now is we need new strategy, we need stronger leadership, we need to bring in management consultants. So they have that top-down view. Someone else in the executive team will say, no, the problem is, I listen to people on the office floor, and what's really going wrong is that they think our values are wrong. They think we're not a team. They think we're not fair. And someone else will say, well, this is all nonsense. Actually, what we need to do is all about carrots and sticks. We need stronger incentives. We need to reward the high flyers. We need to get rid of the laggards, And this will just swirl around. And these are all theories of how organisations work. So there are 101 reasons why organisations fail. But if I had to give one, it is because we very rarely actually stand back and say, what are the characteristics of organisational success? What's success? What are the fundamental dilemmas and challenges of organisational success, and how do we, not just at the leadership level, but as a whole organisation, think those issues through?
Thank you. And I just have to reflect, what if our leaders really care about those in their standard of care, so we can grow our people and our business in harmony? What if leaders would care about their people, their team members and their standard of care, and grow them and their business in harmony, rather than at the expense of one another?
Yeah, well, that's why I'm doing work on good work and productivity, is because I think, the evidence is pretty clear that people have a sense of being respected, being engaged, being trusted, are people who will give more back at work. But the process of doing that and the systems to get that right are not easy. It's not something which is delivered by a mission statement. It is delivered by a kind of continued vigilance about how it is you do that. But you do it in a way which also ensures the organisation is achieving its objectives, managing risk, and all the rest of it. It's Henry Mintzberg famously said many, many years ago that the best way of understanding leadership he got from watching his wife make a clay pot, which was that she had an aesthetic vision, right, of what a beautiful clay pot was, just like you need to have this conceptual vision of what a successful organisation was, but the leadership was like the process by which she continuously moulded the clay in a dynamic process towards the kind of aesthetic vision that she had. And that is what leadership is, but you have to start with that kind of vision. This is great stuff, but we're moving way away from that very far. if IR35 provokes this kind of philosophical reflection, then clearly it's going to be a great success.
So I'm going to ask a philosophical question.
Oh, good.
Do you think then it's not org design but organisational development? Because I wonder whether we should org design to think about our background, put names in boxes and make it work, as opposed to thinking a bit more systematic or holistically about how we get stuff done.
Yes.
Good. Don't worry, we're going to, Matthew can continue to field questions. So thanks for that. I think a couple of interesting things Grahame was talking earlier about working out where the contractors are in the organisation. That's very topical. You almost need Sherlock Holmes to track down sometimes the freelancers in the business, and typically the only footprint is the digital one. The IT login is probably the only easy way of tracking down the worker, and often they're pegged against a stationary budget or something. So I think that audit, that visibility around where the people are, what they're doing, bring all the departments into the work stream, I think is really important. And I think that's been a major challenge actually for lots of the clients that I've spoken to. And just reflecting on Matthew's piece there, that sort of esprit de corps, why are we here? But also, ties in with a few other things around what type of organisations we want to be. We're also looking at diversity and inclusion for next year in terms of the types of customer insights we've had this year and the products and services that probably we want to try and design to help our clients. But it comes back to this, well, where are we going as an organisation? What type of workforce do we therefore need to deliver our organisational goals? And what sort of flexibility can we offer within that workforce to engage workers, to deliver productivity, to turn skills on and off as and when our organisation needs them. And at any one time there's projects and change programmes, etc. working their way through the business. So it's not a uniform thing, staffing all those challenges within the organisation. So very interesting. Okay, so let's push on. So just to the next phase, we've got our panelists have been absolutely patient over here. So I think just a couple of quick introductions then to explain the rest of our panelists. So we had to make a couple of late changes. For some reason there's an election happening next month, so we've had to pull a couple of our people that were joining us today, Tom and Deborah, off the panel due to the election, and luckily Doug Rhodes stepped in. I'll come to Doug in a second. He's from PageGroup. But firstly, Keith. So our first panelist today, Keith Robson. So Keith's background, predominantly private sector, and I think Keith's perspective on today's topic is quite interesting. So he's worked as a senior interim HR leader in a number of large organisations. Earlier his career was on the payroll, but you read his LinkedIn profile, sort of who's who of the FTSE 100, Fortune 500, but Aviva, Rolls-Royce, PayPal, and HSBC. So I think really interesting to see some of Keith's thoughts today. So Keith, just your reflections just on what we've heard so far.
Yeah, sure. So I'm not a serial interim. I've come to this quite late in my career. In fact, one of the questions I get asked a lot is whether I regret not jumping into this field of work earlier on. The answer is no, I don't. I come into it now with a lot more seasoning, a lot more experience, and a lot more curiosity about what lies ahead. I've been in interim now for 4 years, and in that time I've worked in 5 very different types of organisation. And the privilege of doing that is to provide quite an interesting insight into the world of work, and touching on a lot of the things that Matthew mentioned around the way in which organisations are trying a little bit anyway, not always succeeding, but to reinvent themselves, and seeing the level of flexibility, that word that's been used a lot this morning, seeing it firsthand. Generally, there are 2 reasons why people jump into the world of interim. It's no different for me. Personal reasons and professional reasons. Professionally, for me, it was about diversifying my career. I've been lucky, I've worked in many organisations, as you said, all over the world. But it's got to a point now where I wanted to kind of quicken the pace and experience more diversity. So my goal was being an interim, aside from obviously hoping to have an impact in the roles I do, is to take something out of it from a learning experience. I learn by doing. So hence the reason I love interim and like to get out there and do proper jobs, as opposed to being a consultant. And then personally, because I'm 57 years old and I've reached a time in my life where I want to have a better work-life balance. And we all talk about that, right? So I've decided to do something about it. And interim affords me that opportunity. So I live for 5 months a year in South Africa. during the British winter, which is fantastic, and I come back here and I look for my next interim role. And it's, yeah, sweaty cold moments from time to time. You wonder, it's a risk, right? I'm not going to get another job when I get back. But on balance, what it allows me to do is to achieve that lovely situation whereby I've got time to enjoy myself while at the same time learning through the different roles that I do. Just one more comment on IR35. I'm an optimist, so I like to think that we're going to find a way through this. So I don't sweat too much on it. It's interesting to me the way in which some of these organisations, you talk about GSK, Barclays, the big companies knee-jerk all the time, right, when it comes to these things. 2 years on from now, we're probably going to be in a very different place. We'll find a way of working with this because we need to. I read some research yesterday from Gartner that said that within the URIC model, the centres of expertise, which you're all familiar with, apparently that whole area, the number of people working in that area is going to reduce now over the next 10 years. And part of the reason for that is that organisations don't want those people, like me, permanently all of the time. They want to be able to guide that with people like me from time to time and adjust skills and experience. I see that trend continuing, so we'll find a way to get through this.
Brilliant, thanks Keith. Catherine, welcome. It's Catherine Hearn. So Catherine is going to give us some perspective today, hopefully from the public sector journey. So Catherine is Director of Resourcing and Talent for the BBC. Well publicised. Has been out, on a number of fronts, around the journey that the BBC has gone through. Clearly, their composition of labour, challenges of staffing the organisation from production through to a receptionist, obviously presents some unique challenges for the team there. So I think Catherine's perspective there will be really interesting in terms of the journey. I think your career prior to the BBC was Disney. So again, nice contrast with commerce industry into public sector. So Catherine, some initial thoughts on what you've heard so far?
Yeah, so this isn't new stuff for us. We've been doing this since 2018, and it does actually apply to our commercial division as well. So we took a decision as an organisation to take the policies and apply them across. So we absolutely understand we've been working in a market where actually our competitors have not been following the same policies and processes that we have. I think there are a number of things I could talk all day about IR35. Believe me, you don't know what's coming. But I genuinely think that it speaks to our values as an organisation. It is very much around transparency and it is very much around compliance. We really care about the fact that this is part of the public purpose, about giving people fairness and understanding fair work. Key learnings for me about what journey we've been on is about where we have to have a central strategy around this. And when I joined the BBC, it sat with procurement, but actually this is about human beings. And what the thing that I wanted to say is this is as much as all of the stuff that you can do about regulations, this is actually about how people feel. And our workforce, we engage about 120,000, we do 120,000 freelance engagements in a year. We direct engage the vast majority of those. So the kind of experience that we have in terms of, we use an MSP, but we actually contract people ourselves. And I can tell you that people don't feel psychologically safe within IR35. You have to talk to them about it, you have to be honest, you have to be direct. Our managers were not having honest conversations with their freelancers about the implications of this, and it came back to the problem. So the biggest thing that I can give, the value that I can give in terms of our experiences, absolutely we can talk about all the compliance, way we manage it, do that. Talk to your people, talk to your managers, give them the tools that they need, support them with centres of excellence, but please do talk to your freelancers and start having those dialogues now.
Good, thanks Catherine. And finally we've got Doug Rowe. So Doug heads up our Michael Page business here in the UK. So our Michael Page brand, we roughly have 550, 600 recruiters. We recruit for about 3,500 clients, and Doug's been responsible for leading our IR35 work stream in terms of how we partner and help our organisational clients. So Doug, some initial thoughts on what you've heard and where we've been focusing our efforts?
Thanks for introducing me as a supply teacher. That's what this is about for, isn't it? So, but look, it's interesting. As a starting point, like I've been with Page for 21 years, and I don't think we ever seen such a convergence of things at any one time into the workforce, whether it's IR35, it's flexible working, whether it's automation, robotics, everyone's coming at once. And it's all pointing to this organisational design of everybody having to spend more time thinking about it and taking a step back. I think when we look at the whole IR35 piece though, clearly we're having conversations with customers and people who work as interims and contractors, and they fall largely into three buckets. As we've alluded to, on the one hand, there's a bunch of customers, predominantly the larger ones, who are making some fairly sweeping statements about their intentions, and I understand that's understandable. As Catherine's alluded to, it's a big piece of work to get around the organisation and take this seriously. And therefore it's understandable that people are making blanket determinations and saying, this is just our process. At the other end, there's lots of contractors that we're talking to who fundamentally believe either one, this is going to go away, or number two, there is a magic workaround. And there is, clearly we'd be daft to acknowledge to see if there is. There isn't one. The reality is, this needs to be worked with, and it needs to be worked with sensibly and look for what the advantages are. By far the largest bucket though in the middle is the third one, is organisations who are just starting to think about it now, and who are just starting to try and work out what the implication of the impact is, and trying to figure out where to start. And they're the organisations we're starting to spend quite a lot of time with, particularly around that audit phase at the moment, because as Alex alluded to, lots of organisations have got good control over their permanent hiring process, but they really don't know who's in the building from a contractor perspective, because individual hiring managers may have made those hires. It's been done outside of any level of recruitment or HR. They're being invoiced in strange ways, so sometimes it doesn't show up on people's P&L in different lines because they worked out their own internal workarounds. And then even those ones that you do know about that you might have through recruiters, you're just potentially getting an invoice, and therefore you don't know whether that individual's operating as PAYE, through PSC, you're just paying the bill. So it's a big piece of work to actually start that. And I think sensible organisations are looking at that in a broader sense to say, right, there's no point just doing this work for IR35. This can be the starting point of us really starting to take a different level of control and interest in the workforce mix.
Okay, so Graham's obviously also going to join the panel, so if there's any specific questions regarding the research that Graham took us through. So look, we've got half an hour. It'll be great to open up the questions to the floor. If people do need to leave because they've got a hard stop, that's great, just slide out the back. So any questions for the panel, and we can direct the traffic, or if you think it's a question that you're not sure who should answer, I can obviously then decide who's probably best to field the question. But to the floor.
Yep. It was a question that was prompted by Matthew's speech and one of his work principles, thank you so much, of flexibility. I'm just interested in understanding how I feel that IR35 is about to improve flexibility in the workforce.
Might be a good one for Catherine to start with, bearing in mind the composition of the workforce at the
So I think from our perspective, we have taken the opportunity around IR35 and looked at it as total talent acquisition. So actually it's about flexibility for our entire workforce. 90% of our roles now are advertised as flexible working. So we try and ensure that we don't start with the contract type, but actually the requirement of the role, and then fill it with the type of resource that is needed. I think the organisational design argument around it is actually one that is really important to recognise, that we are too traditional in terms of if somebody leaves and we backfill them with exactly the same. So what we've tried to do within our organisation design is to stop that knee-jerk kind of reaction that hiring managers have, which is essentially, oh my goodness, how do I fill it with exactly the same individual, and think about the flexibility of the workforce model. So for us, we're actually offering flexibility not only to our permanent and FTC staff, but also it allows us to bring people into the organization to work in a different way. So I think IR35 has an opportunity for you to think about the ways that you manage your entire workforce and look at total talent acquisition. So flexibility is incredibly important as part of the tool when you're in
maybe it was that I didn't express myself. I wasn't thinking about the flexibility of the people in your organisation. I was thinking about the availability of the talent pool that you can pull in for a month, 3 months, 6 months, and how will IR35 increase that talent pool?
So it gives, again, because we are looking, because we're much more, because now we are managing our contingent workforce through one place, it has allowed us to build talent pools. So previously, hiring managers would reach out to people who they knew, or they would bring people in who had been in the organisation before. It actually gives you much more transparency into the organisation, it gives people much more ability to come in. So the talent pools are really the most important thing that we can give to people in terms of being access to the organisation. So it allows managers to take flexible resource in a way, whereas in saying previously they would just automatically go out and hire. But when you say there's someone ready to go and willing to work and to do this work well for you, who's well trained, who knows compliant, and you can reach out to them now, they are much more likely to use the flexible workforce because they are slightly nervous of the minutes, particularly around IR35. We haven't engaged them. We need to give our managers confidence. I absolutely support flexible working as a model in terms of having that contingent workforce. It's incredibly important to us, and it allows us to be much more mobile and fleet of foot. But we need to make sure that our managers understand that talent pool is there. So IR35 gives actually visibility into the organisation.
Thanks, Catherine.
Hi. It's an observation for reflection on some technicalities. We've got a good selection of HR and leadership people here on the panel, and at the beginning of the Grahame you said get to know assess tool, talked about talk to your people. On the professional tax advice side, there is professional advice of very senior organisations that the last thing you should do is sit down with somebody who may be affected by IR35 and do assessment or talk to them about assessment. Or if there are individuals who are affected by IR35 and they start to approach you and say, well, I'd like to look at my level of remuneration to compensate me, then there are obligations under the Finance Act that you are required to inform HMRC about any of those circumstances. Furthermore, they will say, you're going to get a nice letter from HMRC helping you with this exercise and asking you who's responsible, who's accountable, and then a follow-up letter saying, here are the list of people, and then HMRC, they welcome those people. So it's all very well saying one side there's lots of professional advice from the HR perspective, there's a separate lot of advice from professional tax experts, and that hasn't been mentioned in the discussion, so it's slightly concerns me about the advice.
So my tax director is my best friend, completely, and I agree with you. It's not about giving people individual tax advice. That's not what we're talking about. It's about ensuring people know the overarching strategy of the organisation when it comes to because the people are hearing things in the market like we're not going to have contractors anymore, we're not going to have freelancers anymore, and that's what they're scared about. They're scared about the longevity and the opportunities that are available to them. But you're right, we can't, as an organisation, sit down and do freelance tax codes. That is absolutely not what we're doing. It's about that, just giving people a sense of the opportunity and where the organisation actually lies.
Yeah, I think most HR people would understand. The last thing to do is sit down and give people individual tax advice. It's their accountability. But there is a danger line between providing them advice and setting up helpful procedures and people to advise them and assist them. And the point at which you may get to understand that there may be an issue with your obligations there for the Finance Act, etc., and how HMRC will enforce the regulations. That's a point out. And now, that's professional advice in a very trustworthy organisation.
Grahame, any thoughts in terms of being a consultant?
No, I totally respect the difference between an HR view of the world and a finance view of the world. I think the most important thing is that we absolutely have to stay out of the domain of giving any advice. Absolutely have to take the advice of finance and legal in all of this as well. But I think, for me, finding a way of being as open and transparent as possible, so that when HMRC come along, you can demonstrate that you've done everything that is expected of you. I think that's the most important thing. But I'm not at any point trying to underestimate the importance of the finance act and the website. It's not just an HR view.
We've come to today's session specifically more from a engaging the workforce, thinking about models, etc. We haven't come to today's session from a financial or regulatory perspective. Clearly, an organisation will need to get their processes in place and be comfortable with those processes.
I think, remember one of the things I said, talk to finance, talk to procurement, they've all got to be involved, not just HR.
We've done sessions with PwC as well, which is kind of more aligned to this sort of thing. And I think certainly where they're coming from, I'm not a tax or financial advisor, but I guess in terms of paraphrasing their guidance, you as the employer, the people that make the determination. So where lots of people were struggling is that contractors were maybe getting together, coming up with their own plans, taking those back to organisations to say, have you thought about this, have you thought about that? And clearly their guidance was, you're the one who's got to make the determination of the contract to involved. And that's the advice and guidance to be steered around. And clearly the communication bit comes as much from contractors we're talking to don't quite know what they're doing or what their intentions are going to be. And lots of organisations, if they are entering into conversations, are starting to just try and find out what people's intentions might be. So if this was the status quo, if you've been on the assessor tour, that's what it tells you. Our original plans may have been to get me to the middle of the year next year. That's clearly not going to fly now in our current situation. What would your intentions be? And I think that's where we're seeing some of the contracts organisations starting to.
Good. Any other questions?
Question, I guess, having been through this, when you decided if someone's inside IR35 as opposed to outside, and they disagree with that assessment, what were your practical learnings from managing that process, especially in your industry where the case laws are clear?
Yes. This is again probably one of our biggest challenges has been the lack of clarity between tax and employment status doesn't help particularly. So interesting what Matthew was saying there about the alignment of that, because again there are different nuances between tax and employment paid. When somebody dips into IR35 and they don't agree with us, that's quite a challenging situation, particularly in the talent-led market, where often we will have people who are integral to making a program, for example, and the only rate they will come to is if it was on the old terms or the previous way that we worked together, and having that conversation with them to explain that that's no longer the case. I think we came from a position, it's maybe slightly naively, that the IR35 existed already and we were expecting people to understand this. Again, the naivety, I think, around the contingent workforce population around this stuff was probably was one of our biggest learnings. There are some really serious contractors who absolutely get it and know it really well. But there are other people who've just been reliant on advice or have been reliant on organisations to kind of do that for them. And so when you start to have these conversations with them, they don't necessarily even understand. You have to go really right back to basics. So it is a relationship management aspect to it that we have to undertake at BBC because we're such a talent-led business. It's not, it depends on the complexity of it, but we have to stick by the compliance, so we don't find the way around it. And if somebody doesn't want to come and work with us under those terms, they don't work with us. It's simple as that. But it's tricky, and I think that's why we want to start having conversations early with people. When we got the test tool, it was about 3 months before we went live, and that was a beta test tool. So we had a number of people that into employment that we weren't expecting to, particularly in our on-air community. And that has had ramifications and implications that we continue to see around pay and employment services, etc. So as I say, from my level, it's about simplifying the language, it's about making people clear about what it means, but also understand that we as a public service organisation, we're never going to put somebody's pay up to make up for what they were missing
any thoughts on from your perspective in terms of managing that process through with those difficult conversations and keeping it fair and consistent across the organisation?
I mean, I'm bracing myself for some of those that are probably going to come up next year when I jump back into my next assignment. I mean, look, I think it's important to remember why we're here in the first place, right? And Matthew touched on this and what he had to say. In my 5 interim assignments, I've worked with a number of interims, one of whom had been 4 years in interim in a particular organisation. That's not interim, right? So to an extent, the pendulum swung that way and it's going to swing back again. And it'll find its way. And the organisations, I trust organisations will find their way through all of this. So, as I say, I'm optimistic.
Mike out the audience. Any other questions before we start to move towards some closing?
I've got another point. I think you need to think about your frameworks internally. Assessment is a monthly. So we've created a central team who are using that tool, but also looking at and putting the status in data factors as well, and bringing a level of expertise to it that wouldn't necessarily have been there before, because CEST isn't fit for purpose for everyone.
Other things I've recently.
It can't be upset.
Similar to Catherine's point, a few things that I've seen recently as organisations are within their IR35 steering committee that they've set up. Someone will be responsible objectively to make a determination on the roles across the organisation. So in a really large organisation that might be challenging, but for medium-sized companies that's possible. So I think a level of consistency and objectivity can be brought to the process. So again, something to think about. Good. Any other final questions before we start to? Okay, so just some final thoughts really. I thought I'd just quickly revisit Graham's slide earlier. I think, just to re-emphasise, I mean, these are, I've seen this loud and clear in all the conversations I've had over the last few months with clients. So I think understanding what you have, where it is, the workers in the organisation and getting visibility on the workers is absolutely critical. What are they doing? Is it business critical? What's the nature of that work? And then I think when you start to actually look at what those workers are doing, how are they working within the organisation? Could there potentially be more flexibility for that person? Do we really need to know where they are? Do they need to be coming to the company party? Do they need a work laptop? There's a whole range of questions you'll start asking yourself as you start looking through the piece. I think learning from what others, so we can help steer conversations with customers. We've been introducing our customers to other customers. So again, if you're thinking, well, what's the competitive set doing? I had a conversation a few weeks ago with one of our Midlands-based customers. The fear they had, frankly, was if they went quite binary with the approach around in or outside of IR35, would they get a skills creep out the door to the competitor down the road? When I got to the bottom of the challenge that they saw in the transitionary phase. Lots of other organisations are sort of moving to new states effectively as of the 1st of January. It's quite interesting. So let's start working what we would like our process to become April next year as of the 1st of January. So again, getting ready and having some time to test and learn. As Keith mentioned, I think in 2 years' time it'll be quite interesting to see where we are with this. The nature of the pace of change in the workforce is moving at such a clip anyway, that things will have moved on, and the rest of it. I think other things will start to emerge as well around flexible working, more agility as technology improves, etc. And then the bit that really Matthew was touching on, I think one of the audience members asked about this where are we going, and why are we going there, and how are we going to get there piece. That design piece, I think, is really critical. And I think it's really tough, particularly in the commerce and industry space, because you have the competing agendas around, a very competitive climate, other organisations we're up against, pressure of delivering against short-term expectations, shareholders, owners, monthly target, those other things that feed in. So just to wrap up, so we will send the document, the market research survey with all the findings out. Within that email will come some other potential areas that we can assist with. So, and I will also say today, look, if anyone has heard anything or would like to follow up with any of the panel in any capacity, obviously we can set up further conversations. The IR35 piece for PageGroup is really important. As discussed, we have over 3,000 customers in the UK. We have a contracting book of over 5,000, of which 1,300 are limited company candidates. So this is obviously very important to us to make sure that we get it right, but we're also clearly hoping our clients get it right. But crucially, not just to navigate the short-term challenge, but also the opportunity it presents moving beyond. So I think, thanks to everyone for coming today, and hopefully it's been good to hear the thoughts of the panel and some of the research findings. I've seen Matthew talk before, he's always very engaging, and it's really interesting to hear some of his views as well. We have done a live stream of the event as well, so we'll send the video clip out, if you like, with all the commentary from the panel today as well. So, but thanks for coming. It's been great to see so many faces here today. Appreciate the support for the event. Thank you.